The Linux Challenge, Day 54 update. Life after Microsoft Windows, cutting the cord. Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much once again joining me for tea time. Today we have a little bit of fireside. I hope you're joining me with your cup of tea, maybe a cup of coffee, hanging out, talking tech, talking photo, talking video. Today is a technology day. You guys wanted me to do an update every once in a while, and this is your update. We're on day 54. I think the last time I did an update, it was right around day 30 something. So we're now almost a month later, and I want to give you an update on how Linux is going. A lot of you guys were looking to see me fail sooner than later, and we're on day 54. Still haven't failed, and my Microsoft Windows remains with dust on it here. 54 days later, this NVMe has not been put back into the computer ever since a Linux distro was installed. Now, I currently have two NVMe's that I'm using. And what I'm doing is I'm rotating OSs. I'm rotating distributions. And today I'm going to tell you about all of the distributions that I've tested so far, which ones work out well, which ones didn't, what I liked, what I didn't like about them, and then give you an update on where we're going now. All right. Once again, we're at day 54 and I'm still going. Now, a lot of people are saying, hey, why is this guy doing this, breaking free of Windows? Well, about 54 days ago now, maybe 60 days ago, a couple of months ago, Microsoft did something that was really egregious, let's say, to a lot of people on the interwebs. And what it was is their recall package built into it, well, took pictures of people's screen every 2 to 3 seconds and then distilled those pictures down into usable information for Microsoft and then shot that information over to Microsoft. Once again, just a means to be able to have all information about you. That's what you do, what you don't do, everything about you, so they can sell to you. Once again, you are the product when it comes to Microsoft and Microsoft Windows. So using Linux, for example, is a little bit different. You don't have Big Brother spying on you with most distributions out there, number one. So a lot of you guys said, well, I want to move from Windows to maybe Apple and use Apple OS X. Some people don't know it, but Apple OS X is Unix. Unix is the base of Linux, all right? So if you did move to Apple, that's okay too. But Linux is something that anyone that has a PC today can install right on their computer. And if they don't want to install it, they could actually use it on a little pen drive like this, maybe 32 gig, 256 gig, whatever you can get, right? You can test it out for yourself to see how it works. And a lot of people that are visiting this channel are doing that. And like I said to you since the very beginning, 54 days ago, is you need to come up with a list, things that you absolutely must have and things that you would like. That is applications that must work on Linux for you to even move to Linux, and also hardware or whatever else that needs to work. It's absolutely imperative. And I put together a list for myself, and that list started out with my GPU. I have an NVIDIA GPU. I want to use acceleration through it. So that means those proprietary drivers need to be able to work on Linux, and they did. Also, my mouse, my Bluetooth mouse. I want to make sure that that works. Can I use all of these buttons also on the mouse? Very important to me because I use them for gaming. I also use them for editing and a lot of other things. That has to work. And of course, my Stream Decks, because when I want to change scenes, I could do so with a push of a button. I want to make sure those work. My printers, I have a main Canon printer, and then I also have a BPRT. It is a thermal printer that prints my labels. If that doesn't work, well, I can't send you all of the products that I make, right? So that needs to work. So there's a bunch of different things. Of course, OBS and DaVinci Resolve and some type of editor like an Affinity Photo or Designer or Publisher. So we went through a lot of these so far. And in a future video, we're going to dig a little bit into DaVinci, for example, on Linux, and then also into a photo alternative. I just did an interview with a great guy guy out of Prague. And if you haven't watched that, maybe I'll put a link over here. It was an awesome interview with the maker of Photopea. It is an online, let's say, Photoshop replacement that does an amazing job. Anyway, so today, once again, I want to go through all of these OSs, or all of these distributions is really what it is. And I want to tell you what worked and what didn't work, and why they worked and why they didn't work. Bear in mind, when you hear my experiences with these distributions, take it all with a grain of salt. Just because I had a problem, that doesn't mean that you will have a problem. So if it's something that you really want to take a look at it. Once again, it's very easy to install on here. It'll probably take you about 15 minutes and you'll be able to test that distribution out. So before we get into all of these distributions, I want to say that if you enjoyed the content, throw it a thumbs up. That's very helpful. Consider subscribing if you're not. If you are, thank you. I appreciate that. Click this little notification button here so when I go live and when a new video comes out, you will be notified of it immediately. And if you want more content just like this, having to do with breaking free of Microsoft Windows, I'll put a link over here. Life after Microsoft Windows, cutting the cord. This series will be right here. Don't click on it yet, but when you're done watching this video, check that out. You'll find a bunch of videos that go through this journey. And hopefully you are with me on this journey, maybe doing your own install of Linux. Also, if you just want to say thank you for all of my hard work, there's a thank you button right down here. Click on that, give $1 or $2 if you like. If not, that's perfectly fine. The video is still free, but consider becoming a member of the channel. That would be even better. And finally, if you haven't downloaded any of my ebooks, they're free. Go to JCristina.com/books. Once again, JCristina.com/books. So, housekeeping is done. Let's jump right into these distros. So starting out was Fedora 40. I really, really love Fedora 40. Fedora is upstream to Red Hat Linux. So Red Hat Linux would be more of their commercial type of Linux, where it's very steadfast, very solid, right? Then Fedora is more of the cutting edge. So all of the latest and greatest drivers you're going to find on there. There might be a little bit of quirks here and there because it is a test bed almost. It is basically doing hot fixes all of the time to keep you, let's say, abreast to any type of changes. That includes security changes, any type of, let's say, driver updates. You're going to get the latest and greatest with Fedora. Now, I absolutely loved Fedora. My main printer, which was the Canon printer, was no problem to install. It worked perfectly. My problem with Fedora was I couldn't get my BPRT, which is that thermal printer, to work. And I needed it to work to be able to conduct business and send you, once again, out any of my products, right? So I'm printing labels every single day, sending out products. So I had to have that working. I couldn't get it to work immediately. Now, could I have went into cups and be able to make it work? I probably could have, but I didn't want to do that because I wanted to install something that just simply worked just like I want for you guys. I don't want you to have to sit there in the terminal window trying to code or fix something just to get your printer to work. I think it's nonsense. It shouldn't be that difficult. So Fedora, even though it did fantastic with the look and feel, I love it. Gaming was phenomenal on it. OBS worked perfectly. DaVinci Resolve installed perfectly. All of my Stream Decks worked. All of my audio, everything worked. But once again, the only issue was that secondary printer. Now, I moved on to Nabara. Now, Nabara 40 is basically Fedora, but it is gaming and multimedia centric is what they call it. So what they did is they took, let's say, a Fedora and now kind of squeezed it and churned it and added in more codecs and also added in more drivers right out the get-go, and then wrote their own set of, let's say, apps and whatnot that really squeezed the operating system for, let's say, the gamer out there or for the creator out there. Like for me, I'm using DaVinci Resolve. So that's what this OS was all about, the distribution. Gaming was perfect on it, no problem. The OBS worked. DaVinci Resolve worked perfectly fine. But what I noticed was the gaming and the performance on the multimedia side of things was on par with all of the other distros that I tried. So I said, why is that? That doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm not getting anything. I'm not gaining anything from using Nabara compared to using Fedora. And The problem that I had with Nabara is that Nabara had its own update application. And if you didn't use that update application to update Nabara and you forgot and you did something else to update, you could break stuff very easily. So you had to use their updater. I just didn't like that. To me, it kind of breaks continuity, let's say, right? I just want things to work internally. I don't want to have to do something, this or that or whatever, just to make you work properly, right? I don't want that. So while I like Nabara, I like Fedora even more. And the reason being is there really wasn't any reason for Nabara for me. Now, you might have a different experience, so definitely check it out. The next thing I tried was CachyOS. Now, CachyOS, instead of being based on Fedora, it's based on Arch Linux. Now, CachyOS, I disliked the most out of every single distribution that I tried. I didn't like this thing at all. It didn't come with very many codecs, so video didn't work properly. The base drivers that it had were minimal at best. It didn't even have Bluetooth working out of the box. I mean, if you can't turn Bluetooth on in 2024 out of the box, I don't even know what to tell you, okay? How much resources are you going to save by not turning Bluetooth on because a guy has a USB instead of a Bluetooth mouse or what? Just stop already, okay? That to me is just idiotic. That's my personal opinion. Also, while with Nabara and as well as Fedora, only one of my printers worked, but not my important printer, which is that thermal printer. Well, guess what? With CachyOS, 0 printers worked. Nothing. I couldn't get any of them to work. Now, could I have went into cups and installed? Probably. But you know what? Once again, I didn't want to do it, and I didn't want you to have to do it. The other thing with CachyOS is it's supposed to have been a gaming type of OS. Very lightweight, really twisted and squeezed, and it just is Arch, but a little bit more, let's say, easy to approachable Arch Linux. But it's kind of made for the tinkerer, right? Someone that wants to go in there and install everything that they want from scratch. And this way, no other applications are installed. It's very lightweight, that type of thing. But honestly, it's not for me. I don't need that. All right. Maybe it's for you. Test out CachyOS. For me, it is by far the worst. Aesthetically, I didn't care for it in comparison to Fedora. I thought Fedora was a hell of a lot nicer. Now, bear in mind, I should have said this from the beginning. Every one of these distributions I used for a desktop, I use GNOME or GNOME, however you want to call it, right? So GNOME is the desktop environment of my liking, right? I could have used KDE. The bottom line was I used GNOME on everything, right? GNOME, whatever. So the reason I did that is so they all have an even playing field. Not one is using KDE, the other one's using GNOME, and back and forth, right? They're all using GNOME. So we moved on from this CachyOS to Pika OS, like Pikachu, Pika OS. They created to be more like gaming or multimedia centric, right? So the idea was it's once again a little bit more lightweight and gaming worked fine on it. OBS worked fine. The DaVinci Resolve worked fine. All of my stuff worked, right? The Stream Deck and my audio and all the rest of the stuff. Everything worked. Bluetooth was actually there. Who would have thunk it? CachyOS, God. Anyways, everything was great. The only problem with it was kind of twofold. Number one, the secondary printer, that thermal printer, did not work, which I thought was very strange because it has Ubuntu as its base. So the thermal printer actually has Ubuntu drivers. So I would say they should work, but they didn't work. So that was a problem to me. Also, I didn't like the aesthetic of it. It was let's say a whimsical type of aesthetic. And they did take some liberties with GNOME, in my personal opinion, that I didn't like. It just didn't feel nice to me. Once again, very whimsy. If you like a whimsy OS, Pika OS is definitely for you. But once again, the secondary printer didn't work. The aesthetic wasn't for me, so it was a no-go. The next one I tried was Pop OS. Now, Pop OS, I got so many good reports on Pop OS from you guys. I I really thought this was going to be it. It was going to be amazing. Pop! OS really didn't meet the hype for me. Number one, only one of the printers worked, just like I said before. It is Ubuntu based, so I would think that the Ubuntu drivers should have worked on it, but they didn't. Didn't make me happy. Also, the installation was kind of clunky. It wasn't as smooth or as polished as the other distributions, which I didn't like. Also, the OS itself, the distribution felt like a hodgepodge amalgam of distros, all put together into one and then woven together to hope work into this tapestry. And it didn't work. In my personal opinion, I just didn't like it. I mean, I could see Fedora, I could see like Casio, I could see like all of these distros all in there. Just once again, an amalgam, this hodgepodge mix that they tried to assemble into something that works. And it was the same type of thing with like Windows, right? You have 1,000 people writing code, and then you have like 10 people taking these 1,000 people's code and then trying to stitch it once again into this tapestry that actually looks like something, that actually works. And what I found out of every distribution that I tried, this was the only one, Pop! OS was the only distribution that failed, that actually crashed, and not even soft crashed, but hard crashed. It locked everything up. I couldn't go into like the terminal and be able to kill that PID, that process, right? The problem process. The problem process ended up being the store, right? I was going in there to download, I don't know, it's like OBS or whatever it was, and it literally locked solid. And I had to reboot the computer from scratch. And at that point I said, you know what? You're gone. That's it. I mean, if you're going to lock up like that, obviously you have some problems, some issues going on. So Pop! OS, even though I had high expectations because of you guys, it's just a no-go for me. Now, the next OS I tried was Zorin OS. Now, Zorin OS, a lot of people that are teachers out there said this is the best thing since sliced bread. It is a really good OS. It's also based on Ubuntu, and only one printer worked. Once again, even though it's based on Ubuntu, the Ubuntu drivers didn't work on it. Some of the drivers and some of the apps, they just were kludgy. They didn't work properly. And the OS itself literally felt like Windows 95 or Windows 98. It's like I'm trying to break free of Windows. I don't want to come back to an older version of Windows, right? So for me, it just didn't work at all. So Zorin OS was just a no-go completely. The next one that I tried was, actually I tried it before, but last on my list, I should say, is Linux Mint. Now, I've told you in the past, Linux Mint has been my favorite, even though I shouldn't say that. Fedora is my favorite. Linux Mint just simply works, okay? So, once again, it is a Ubuntu distro, right? Based on Ubuntu. But guess what? Both drivers worked. Both printers worked. I installed one driver, printer came on, no problem. Installed the other driver, the other printer came on, no problem. I didn't have to do anything. My video drivers already updated. All of the drivers, everything was already on there. It had extra codecs in there. I could play video without an issue. Bluetooth damn worked. No kidding. Just everything just simply worked. And what was really strange is that when I was gaming with this OS or with this distribution, it actually had better FPS, frames per second, gaming than some of the gaming specific distributions. Now, some of you guys said that it has to do with Wayland on the other distros and whatnot, and I completely get it. But as far as the gaming performance, it was better on Linux Mint. Once again, everything worked. The Stream Decks, the audio, the mouse, the printers, all of the drivers, everything worked. Gaming, once again, better than everything else. OBS, no problem. DaVinci Resolve installed with no issues at all. There was never once a lockup or some type of problem that I had to reboot this system from scratch, right? Like what ended up happening with Pop! OS. None of that. None of that. So with this distro, as of today, It's in. Matter of fact, I'm recording with it right now. I'm going to install Apple's Time Machine, but on Linux. They call it Time Shift, so that if I do anything to break this distro, I can go back in time to where I was. So I unbreak it, so to speak. Now, I haven't done this yet with any OS, and the reason I'm doing it with this one is because now I have many weeks using it and switching it out once again, pulling a NVMe out, sticking this one back in, and back and forth, right? Testing out the distributions. So at this point, I feel really confident with it, right? But I want to also try some others. So if there are some distros that you want me to test out, let me know and I will. If there's some that you want me to revisit and you're going to tell me, listen, hey, the secondary printer, this is how you do it. Do this with cups and this and that, and it's going to work. Or change that Ubuntu driver into a .deb file or into a .rpm file or whatever, and try to do the install, whatever you want to tell me. I don't care. I've tried that all before anyways. Didn't work. But whatever it is, if you want me to test out or revisit one, let me know. Or test out a different one, let me know what that is. Also, I have now moved forward with a video card. I said, well, we see that Linux Mint is working out really well. Let's go and install an updated video card. I was using a GTX 1070. I just picked up an RTX, I believe it's a 3060. So, I mean, there's better out there, obviously, but I'm not spending $1,000. I only spend, I don't know, $300 or something, whatever it was on it. Not that much, $350. So I'm now going to test out this RTX 3060. It is installed right now. I'm recording with it. Everything worked immediately. The drivers were the same. I didn't have to do anything at all. It just simply works. Now I'm going to find out how much faster it renders. According to my calculations, it's supposed to be about 20 to 30% faster in DaVinci Resolve to render videos. I'm also going to check out FPS in Guild Wars 2. I've been using that as a demo, a game demo, and using it to see which distros work better and which ones get better FPS, better frames per second, better performance. So I'm going to test that also. The other thing that I did is I'm ordering in a new CPU. So currently we have a 1700 Ryzen, and I've ordered in a 3800 series. So I'm going to stick that in, see how that runs, and see if we end up with a substantial increase in video rendering performance as well as gaming performance, because we know everything else is working fine. So now I'm going to start pushing the system by bringing in different devices, maybe some accessories that are not supported by Linux, but some of the community members wrote drivers for them. A perfect example is my Stream Deck. Stream Deck is an Elgato product. Elgato has a problem with Linux. They don't feel like writing drivers for Linux. That's why I'm using a different capture card, a 4K capture card that is not Elgato. Even though I have an Elgato internal card that does 4K and it has 4 inputs, that's amazing on Windows, there is no drivers for it. So I ended up once again having to buy a different company's external that is working out really good. And that's what I'm using for recording this as of now. So this is where we are as of right now, day 54. Once again, Windows remains here. It is dusty, as you can see. It's been here for 54 days, and that's where it will stay. If something changes, I will let you know. But as of right now, almost 2 months later, there is no Windows being used, and I have not installed that on the computer since. So once again, if you want me to test out any other distros, let me know which ones and I will test them out. I'm doing this for you guys, so you don't have to do it. That doesn't mean that, once again, my experiences are going to be the same as yours. So if there's a distribution that you like that maybe didn't work out for me, try it. There's no reason not to. That's all you have to do is stick it onto one of these pen drives, boot your computer from the pen drive, and now use Linux from here. That's it. Test it out. See if you like it. And if you do, And if your list of items, like my list, were all checked off, everything is copacetic, let's say, all of those hardware items and all of the accessories and all of your software and everything can be used on Linux, there's no reason to stick with Windows. Once again, Windows is, in my personal opinion, a virus. It is malware. It is spyware. I just simply wouldn't use it and give my money to Billy the Kid. I would rather use a free open operating system like Linux. What say you? Down below, I want to hear from you. And if you don't want to put something down there, put an emoji down there. Put a poop emoji. Put anything, any type of emoji. That would make me happy. At least I'll know that you got to the end of this video. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed it, throw it a thumbs up. And finally, head over to my website, JCristina.com, where you can find all the photography tools I've invented over the many years, and my merch and my teas and my books and everything else. Pick something up. Help support me and my family. Once again, that's JCristina.com, JCristina.com. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay connected, stay Microsoft free. We'll see you in the next one. Love you guys.